Welcome to this week's episode of Success in Women. I'm Linda, and as you can see, Andrea is not here. Matter of fact, while I'm filming this, Andrea's on a road trip. So she'll be back next week, don't you worry. So because I'm doing the show on my own today, I thought I would go and give you a little bit of background on what's happened with me, and I'll say when it came to a career and how I ended up being where I am today. Oh, and by the way, I don't have a tip for you this week because that's Andrea's department, but I'm sure you can live 1 week without it. Okay, maybe I should give you a tip. I'm going to do it, but it's going to be totally something different than what you've ever had so far in the last couple of years of us doing the show. And your tip is, make sure you have written goals that you're actually reviewing on a daily basis. Yes, you heard it right. Daily basis. Look at your written goals, because in order to achieve what you want, you're more likely to be successful if your goals are written and you're actually reviewing it. And since we're already at the end of May, well, pretty close to the end of May, you know, we're almost halfway through the year. And I know a lot of you ladies have goals, but I don't want them all here. I want them actually on a card. Look at it, carry it, know that it's with you. So, again, going back to my, I'll say, past. I remember actually I had dropped out of college when my father had passed away and just couldn't get motivated to finish out the year even though it was almost over. And I ended up getting a job in retail. And, you know, retail, unfortunately, to keep prices down, they can't afford to pay their staff a lot of money. And I actually got hired as a supervisor in my department, and I was making less money than the people I supervised because they had been there for many, many years. They just didn't want the supervisory position. Anyway, so I hadn't been there that long, and actually my department and my whole career with this retail was 3 months. So you can imagine it's a very short time. But whenever I work, I actually would give it my all. So my department, I was in, believe it or not, in a department store that had a deli department, a candy department, toy department, you know, all of that, clothes, whatever. Anyway, my department, by my 3rd month of working in this store, actually had top sales over the candy department. And that had never happened in their past. Anyway, so what happened was, just as I was excelling in the deli department, the supervisor that I had replaced, who had quit, mental health issues, but she felt after 3 months of being away from it, she really missed the job and wanted to come back. Since I knew it wasn't going to be my career, I said no problem, and the manager of the store had actually put me in the toy department. And since this was just before Christmas, they could use the extra hands. So I gave up my career as a supervisor of a deli department to let the previous supervisor come back, and I went in to work in the toy department. And since it was Christmas, it was fun because there were a lot of families and kids around and whatever. Anyway, there was an incident where the HR manager, I needed some time to change my shift, and the HR manager said that I couldn't do it. I couldn't change. So I decided to go above her and went to the manager of the actual department that I worked in toys. And he was very kind and said, if you can find a replacement or somebody to change shifts with, there's no issue. So because of that, I actually got fired. And I was shocked. I was embarrassed, actually. And I went home and I cried. I just couldn't believe it. You know, like I came off working a department where we were number one in sales. It's the week before Christmas. And what the manager actually said, the HR manager said, she was laying me off. Now, if you've ever been to a department store the week before Christmas, it's chaotic right up until Christmas Eve. But I got laid off, and I knew it was because I had gone above her and got permission to do something that she had told me no. And this is kind of strange because instead of understanding my situation, what was going on, and this was something in my personal home life that I needed to change this, and I ended up working a split shift, and there should have been no reason, but for some reason, a lot of times, women, instead of being supportive and understanding, they just wanted to throw around their power. And in this particular case, this manager just wanted to show me who actually had the power. And she was able to lay me off, even though my department manager had thought there was no way that I would ever be let go because I was a valuable employee to him. Anyway, I did. I got laid off, and but I know it was just a form of termination, but there was no cause. So they had to pay me a week's severance, even though I'd only been there 3 months. And I didn't know that at first, and she didn't offer it. And so I actually had to go find out from the labor board my rights, and went back and I said that you owe me notice, because she fired me on the spot, basically. Laid me off. Another name for, being fired. Anyway, so as much as I knew that this was not going to be my lifetime career, it was upsetting. But when I got over that, I decided I would go back to college. I lived very close to the community college, and I was married at the time. And my husband said, yeah, there's no issue. I can support and pay the rent and everything. Go back to school if that's what you want to do. So I did that, and I took a couple of part-time jobs also to make sure that I had my own spending money. That was just something I wanted to do. Anyway, so I went back to school and ended up, in a totally different career. But the thing is, sometimes I find as women, we tend to stay in jobs that we're not happy in, that we know that it's not really a career that we want to make of it, but we're afraid. We're afraid of the consequences if we quit our job. I remember, my brother being in a job that he didn't mind, but he wasn't overly enthused about it. And until he got laid off from his job because the company pulled out of the city that he worked in, he had to look for another job. But what it did was it led him to a job he was way happier in. Way happier. Well, that's what happened to me. I ended up going, after I went back to school, and ended up getting a job as an accountant in a large hotel. And from there, ended up getting a job, which I would say was more of a career with the federal government. And I enjoyed it very much until I got bored. And that was the problem with me. I got bored very easily if I wasn't challenged at work. And I also felt that things that I was doing at work, I was working really hard to excel, and I learned some really good skills working for the federal government. But looking around, I also worked with a lot of people that took the job and really were just going in every day, hating it, and just wanting to collect their pension after, 25, 30 years. I didn't want that to be my life. I didn't want my life to be where I would be unfulfilled. So after about 8.5 years, I couldn't advance anymore in my career with the federal government because I wasn't bilingual. And I really didn't have the ear for languages. We don't all have that. And as much as sometimes you can say, yeah, you can learn it, I kind of tried, and I was married to a French-speaking person who really had no interest to teach me French because he found it frustrating that I wasn't catching on fast enough. So, lo and behold, I've done everything I could do. I've gone as far as I could with the federal government. And it was good while it lasted, because during that 8.5 years, I moved from one city to Toronto, which was a way bigger city and had more opportunities. And at that point, I actually ended up splitting up with my husband. And now I'm responsible for my own finances. And when you live in a big city, it's a lot more expensive than living in the smaller, I'll say, city that I grew up in. So now I have to be earning, but I wasn't happy anymore and wasn't being fulfilled in my job. That was kind of a difficult crossroads for me, because do I quit? And if I quit, what do I do? So at the time, I actually had a friend that found a job that he thought I would be more suited to, and that was sales. And sales is a job for a lot of people where you actually get rewarded for the effort that you put in. And I thought, okay, now I'm going to give up a job that's full-time, it's got a pension, it's got all the benefits, and I'm going to go into actually something that is unknown. Because in sales, you don't get a pay. You literally have to earn it. Now, what happened was, when I applied for the job, I got hired, and the manager had said he would give me a draw. And what that means is it's a draw against future sales. So what I had to do is I had to budget, I had to calculate what I needed as a minimum to get by every month. How much did I need to pay my rent? I can't even remember if I had a mortgage or if I was renting, but I had to calculate all of my expenses back then. And then what he did was he gave me that amount of money every month so that I could continue in the sales. And of course, you know, when you're in the beginning, all you're doing is learning, you're not really earning. But I said to myself, if I don't take this chance now, when do I do it? At that point, I had no responsibilities. I was separated from my husband. I had no children, no pets. It was just me that I had to look after. And I felt confident in my skills that if I didn't succeed in sales, I could possibly go back to the government. I could possibly get a waitress job, retail sales, something where I could earn a living. So when I looked at the big pictures and on paper, I drew out the pros and cons. I said, why not try? That was over 35 years ago. And I have never, ever looked back. It was the best thing ever, because now I'm working for me. And when you're in sales, there's not a lot of upfront money that you need in order to be successful. I certainly had to take a lot of courses, which I did. I used a lot of the skills that I had learned when I was with the federal government. But I found that, I'm going to say, not just going into sales, but in sales of something that I really enjoyed doing, and that was working with people and working with numbers. It made all the difference, because it never felt like I worked again. I got up in the morning, I was excited. Matter of fact, Fridays were a little bit disappointing and frustrating for me because it was Saturday and Sunday, and once I got established, I didn't work any more weekends. And so I had to wait until Monday to get to go back to work. Did you hear me? I got to go to work. I wanted to work. And one of the things that I learned about in sales was that you had to set goals. You didn't have a choice because you had to set sales goals. You had to set appointment goals. You had to set a lot of goals. And all these goals, these little steps along the way, helped you to focus on moving forward, because there were also a lot of failures that you had to overcome. But all those failures were tiny roadblocks that sent you in another direction. So you learned very quickly what didn't work so you could move on to what did work. And so setting goals has been, part of my career for most of my career. I didn't have to set so many goals when I was with the federal government. So that was one lesson I only learned when I got into sales. What I did learn in the government, which I've carried to this day, is that unless it's a need to know, everything is confidential. So everything that I did was private. It never got discussed with anybody. And I carried that into my sales career because I was getting to know and learn the most intimate things about my clients that their families didn't know about, but I did. And then what happened is that you would get referrals to other family members, you would get referrals to other friends, but my clients were always confident that whatever they told me never went beyond the four walls where we had our appointments. So whether it was my office or their home, everything stayed confidential. And as a result, I just continued to grow and grow and grow. But again, it never felt like I was working. The beautiful part of it was that I made a lot of friends, and I felt like it was when I see my clients, it's like a social visit. Yes, we do business and we get that stuff out of the way quickly, but the rest of it becomes, what's been happening, what the plans are. And now a lot of these clients are retired and they share their, exciting trips and the things that they're doing in retirement. And it's wonderful. And if you can find a career that's not work, but you get paid, wow, what a bonus that is. And that was the funny thing, is that in the beginning, it was hard to believe and accept that I was getting paid to do something that I loved so much. And if I hadn't have gotten fired from that job, I don't know if I would have quit. It's what a lot of us do. We're so dedicated, as much as we don't even like what we're doing. We just feel like we'd be letting too many people down. We would feel like a failure if we let ourselves down, because we don't want to quit and try something else. And also, it's that fear of the unknown. We're so afraid of what we're going to walk into. But one of the things that kept me focused on that sales career was the fact that I felt like if I fail at that, I'm not failing from life. I'm not failing from I can't do anything because this didn't work out. I've just learned something about myself, that the unknown in the sense of pay from day to day and week to week is not something I can do. Then I go in and I get that 9-to-5 job again. I had it before, but the thing is, I never really truly enjoyed being locked into a 9-to-5. I can work 9 to 9 in my job that I do now because I'm doing what I absolutely love doing. Now, my crossroads that I'm hitting now is that at what point do I retire from that? And so that's my next step right now, because I've been doing this. I'm in my 35th year of doing that particular sales job. Now I'm looking to change that and do more of what I really think I would enjoy again. I've enjoyed my career, don't get me wrong, and it never felt boring. It never felt like I needed to find something new and exciting. Every day was a challenge. Every day things kept changing. And so every day was a new adventure. I love it. But I want this new adventure again, because life isn't over until you say it's over. And I'll always work because it's what I love to do. Because actually, it's not work. And when I left in 1990, the government, that's when I retired. And I've been retired ever since. Now I want to retire from another career into another retirement career. And that's what I do for you. And what, Andrea does as well when we're together. But I wanted to share this because I know women can have a lot of fear. I know that maybe your family depends on you, for that financial support that you're giving right now. You have to make the decision at some point in your life. Is it going in the right direction? Or is fear stopping you from actually taking the bold move to maybe get retrained into something else? Only you can make that decision. It won't always work out, because I know when I left the government and I started in the sales, when I went into my training, and for 2 weeks I was sitting in a classroom, but I'm the only one left from that classroom 34 and a half years ago. There's nobody else left. They didn't make it in sales. Now, I'm not saying they didn't make it in their careers, because some people just excel better knowing the guarantees. I think for me, my spirit is more the unknown, but doing something that I love. And I love sales. I love people. And to get compensated for doing something that you love is not work. And so for me, it worked. But you have to write out on paper the pros and cons. They call it the Ben Franklin, decision making. Because you list all the reasons why you should do it on one side and all the reasons why you shouldn't do it on the other. One side of that paper is going to be longer than the other. And any major decision I've ever had to do in my life, including this career move, I've done the Ben Franklin move. And it's funny how that piece of paper will help you make a decision that you didn't even know. And sometimes you keep it buried deep inside you. Something is not fulfilling you. Something is not making you happy. Then look at yourself, look at your life, look at your career, and figure out, is this really what you wanted? My mother died at 92, but my mother always wanted to be a nurse. My mother was too afraid to go back to school. Maybe it was because she thought she was too old. Maybe it was because she thought, she wasn't smart enough. But my mother loved everything about nursing. But fear stopped her from making the move. And I think my mother would have excelled, because for her, that was just something she absolutely loved. And if she ever gets to be reincarnated, come back, I hope she comes back as a nurse, because she will have fulfilled her dream at that point. But if you're going to do it, you want to make sure that you can financially afford to do that. So have a cushion. I was very blessed, because when I told my manager at the government that I wanted to leave, but I didn't really want to quit, she was able to lay me off. And with that, because of my years of service, I got a severance package. And that helped me go in, I'm going to say, to the unknown. But I was fortunate that, and with the draw that my manager gave me, I never looked back. He took me off very quickly, because I was having too much money built up in the bank, because I actually did very well. And he said, there's no point in me giving you this money. You've got all this money sitting here. You got enough of a cushion. You don't have to worry about the draw. So that's what we did. But have somebody, if it's a good friend, your spouse, your kids, somebody to help motivate you and keep you when things are not looking so, I'll say, positive, because you're going to have setbacks. You need somebody to help lift you and stay focused on what the real goal is. And don't stop learning. Find mentors, find courses, find coaches that can help you excel at what it is you want to do. So I hope that you enjoyed this segment and my story and my journey to get me to where I am today, that might help make some decisions a little easier for you. But you know, the show is all about women helping women. If you have comments, if you have concerns, if you want to reach out to myself and Andrea, you know, do that through our website at Success in Women. And by the way, we will be rebranding our website and our name, because it's not easy for a lot of you to find us on the web. So Andrea and I will be, you know, calling it Linda and Andrea or something along that line, so you can find us a lot easier. So again, I hope you enjoyed the segment. If you did, please like, share, and subscribe, because we can't do it without you. And this is what we want to do for our next phase of our career. So until next time, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. See you soon.